medication when you go to Haiti. One of the things about the CDC website, there's also a link on there to travel clinics, and this is very helpful because you can put in your zip code and they will pull up various travel clinics that they recommend, and you can make an appointment to go to a travel clinic, and someone at the travel clinic, a nurse practitioner or a physician or a PA, will do an assessment of your current vaccination schedule, determine where you're going, and they will tell you which vaccinations they recommend. Now, before you do that, I recommend contacting your county health department and finding out which vaccinations they offer and what prices they offer those vaccinations for, because when you go to the travel clinic, they may offer you those vaccinations, but they may be slightly overpriced. So if you know in advance what the prices are of your county health departments, you may be able to get those vaccinations a little bit cheaper. Now, this is just an example of what the immunization schedule looks like based on ages, and I will provide a copy for you if you email me of all these different various vaccination schedules. Now, going back to malaria, most countries that you go to are going to be recommended that you be on some type of anti-malarial. And there's several different medications out there, and they all have different side effects. I know for myself, I took doxycycline, which, hey, it's a great medication. I remember using it as a teenager to do away with some acne issues. And but anyhow, with doxycycline, you take that medication once a day. You start it a few days before you leave, and when you return from your trip, you continue that medication, I believe, for 2 weeks when you return. Now, just because you're on an anti-malarial doesn't guarantee that you're not going to contract malaria. Now, malaria is a parasitic disease which is carried from humans back to mosquitoes, mosquitoes back to humans, and it's a very awful disease. And just the fact that you're on the oral anti-malarial doesn't guarantee that you're not going to contract it. So I still recommend that you're on, that you put on an a mosquito repellent, and that you spray your clothes before you go. There's this spray that you can buy. I can't think of the name of it, but you could buy it at a hunting store or Gander Mountain or Dick's Sporting Goods, and you can spray this stuff on your clothes, and it basically makes your clothes and you resistant to mosquitoes for up to 6 weeks, even if you launder your clothes. So you also can bring mosquito nets, a mosquito net to cover your head, so when you're sleeping at night, the mosquitoes are not going to get to your exposed surfaces. Now, when you go on a mission trip, it's important that you look at insurance and that you have insurance. Now, myself, I was kind of naive. The first 2 mission trips I went on, I did have medical and I did have traveler's evacuation insurance, but I did not have malpractice insurance. Now, I'm sure everybody in here has medical insurance, but your medical insurance is either not going to cover your medical care, or it's only going to pay a very limited amount of your medical care if you're in a foreign country. So it's important that you shop around and find someone that can provide you with medical insurance or reimburse you for medical expenses if you incur those while you're in another country. Also, travelers and evacuation insurance, very important to have, because if you're in a foreign country and there's a political uprising, or just say you have a huge MI and they cannot provide you with the proper care, and you need to be evacuated to the United States or another country that can give you that needed care, you're going to want to have a policy that'll basically cover you for that. And there's many insurance companies out there that offer these policies, all at competitive rates. Malpractice insurance, the first 2 trips I went on, I did not have malpractice insurance. And in preparing for this lecture, I did find out that there is something out there called the Guernsey Trust, which is basically a trust fund that you pay into, and this trust fund will provide you, and it only costs, we're considered level 2 providers as CRNAs. It costs you $7 a day to get this coverage, and that coverage will give you up to $500,000 in malpractice coverage, I believe with a $5,000 deductible. And I will provide you with that information if you email me, but it's through the Guernsey, it's through the International Helpers Trust Fund, or the Guernsey Trust Fund, and I think for that price, I think it's well worth it. I talked to the gentleman on the phone, and he said that he knew of a surgeon that lost a child on the table, and the surgeon was actually taken to jail until they could figure out the dynamics of the case and what happened. Are you going to get sued on a mission trip? Probably not very likely, but you do. I know for myself, I think it's worth the $7 a day. And when I go this year to Haiti, I am definitely going to get myself malpractice coverage. Now, when it comes to supplies, this is one of the things you're going to want to find out from your mission organization. What kind of supplies are they going to provide you, and what types of supplies are you going to have to bring? For us, there were some supplies that were there. They did provide the narcotic medications, and there were some leftover anesthesia supplies there. But I made up my own list of supplies that I knew that I would need. And communicating with the surgeon, I knew that the majority of our cases were going to be hernia repairs, and I brought a lot of filters for my circuits. I brought some ET tubes, I brought some LMAs. I basically filled, if you look at that picture of duffel bags there, that orange one in the top middle was considered the anesthesia bag, and I basically filled that thing up with all the supplies that I thought I would need. And obviously, I probably overpacked and brought more than I needed, but I was able to leave those supplies for future anesthesia personnel going to that clinic. Now, when it comes to acquiring supplies, there's a few resources to you. I'd like to recommend that you start at your own facility. I myself work at Findlay Surgery Center in Findlay, Ohio. They're very gracious. I talked to the administrator there well in advance of our trip, and we come up with a game plan. They do donate a lot of the supplies that I bring with me, including a lot of the medications that I bring with me. We also asked Blanchard Valley Hospital, which is also in Findlay, Ohio, and they are very gracious, and they've donated a lot of the supplies. We also have asked some of our reps, our reps with equipment. The Carl Storrs Company, they donated a headlamp for our surgeon. We also had a company out of Stowe, Ohio, that donated a cooling vest and a cooler to keep our surgeon cool during his surgical care of the patients. So start at your own facility. It's a great place to start. Try to get your supplies from them, and also ask your reps that you meet with. One of the other things I'd recommend, there's an organization out of Stamford, Connecticut. It's called AmeriCares. AmeriCares. And if you go on their website and you fill out an application with them, they will send you a current inventory of the supplies that they have available. They basically get supplies donated to them from various companies all over the country, different pharmaceutical companies, different medical suppliers. They then turn around and give those supplies to people like us that are going on mission trips. Now they ask that they have you sign a paper that says you're going to be using the supplies in a foreign country. You agree that you're not going to be selling these supplies, and that you're not going to be using them for your own benefit. So AmeriCares is the name of that company. Now, when it comes to funding of your mission trip, unfortunately, Most mission trips that I've looked into and most people that I've talked to have gone on mission trips, all the funding has been from themselves. So you're talking about, for me going to Haiti, I believe it was less than $1,500. I know that speaking to Garland and Kathy that went to um, Ethiopia, I believe they paid about a little bit more than that, maybe $3,000. But then again, they were there for a 2-week mission trip. The funding really, it's you're on your own when it comes to that. I think when it comes to trying to get companies to donate equipment and things like that, that seems to be like a more successful thing than actually trying to raise money for yourself. So when it comes to funding, you're pretty much on your own. Now that we've covered the preparation for going on a mission trip, we'll talk briefly about the mission trip itself. Now, what I recommend when you go on your mission trip, you want to get to your facility as soon as you can and basically assess your environment, see what kind of supplies they have on hand, compare that to the supplies that you brought. That way, when you communicate with your surgical team and your surgeon, you'll know the types of cases you can and can't do. I mean, if you're expected to do pediatric cases and you don't have any pediatric ET tubes or LMAs or masks, it's going to be hard to do pediatric cases if you don't have the right equipment. So get to your facility as soon as you can, kind of assess the area, figure out what you have and what you're going to need. And this is actually a picture of the operating room in Haiti that I've worked in. And you can see the supply cabinets. The one in the back middle is actually the medications. The supply cabinet on the right has various ET tubes, needles, syringes, spinal kits, and the like. Now, when you look at that anesthesia machine, it looks like a very nice anesthesia machine, doesn't it? With the isoflurane vaporizer on it. And you can see there's a little sign hanging on that anesthesia machine. And when we pan in, this is what the sign says. This thing doesn't work at all. Please use the tray in the suitcase. And this goes back to my earlier point about talking to your scout. I talked to Tom Hip in advance, and I knew that this machine didn't work. I mean, the hoses on the back of the machine, they're all ripped out, all ripped up. I believe the electrical is all frayed on it. So this thing looks very nice, but it's unable to provide anesthesia. And I was